Buenos días, Shigres Pule Winzed. I am White Mountain Apache from White River, Arizona.
My name is Bright Eagle. I'm from Newtown, North Dakota, and I'm studying Human Social Services.
I'm Candace Arapo, and I'm enrolled at the Standing Rock Reservation.
Our topic is, why does it seem that tribal court mishandle crimes?
Oh, the definitions. So, tribal courts is a court administered through self-government of an American Indian tribe, especially on a reservation, and having federally prescribed jurisdiction over custody and adoption cases involving tribal children, criminal jurisdiction over offenses committed on tribal lands by members of the tribe, and broader civil jurisdiction over claims between tribe members and non-members. And mishandle is to manage or deal with something wrongly or ineffectively.
I'll start with mine first. It's kind of a long one, so please doesn't close. Tribal officer Carlota, I'm sorry if I butcher her last name. Carlota So Tapahanzo was arriving at her shift at the Navajo Nation police station where she noticed a woman crying near the post office on a hot July day. She approached this woman and she would go on to explain that she needed help finding her 2 of her 3 children, one being only 3 months and the other being 16 months. At first, she wasn't making sense because she was clearly upset, until she showed her text between her and the children's text between her and the children's father. She was able to get an understanding. From what she got from the text, he revealed that he has taken them from their home in Unit, Utah, heavily intoxicated, and has also said that he is going to kill himself along with the children with a handgun he recently received. She had hurriedly taken her to the police station to file a report. It had already been 2 hours since the mother had last seen her 2 children, and due to Carlota's 20 years of experience on the force, she understands that the more time they waste, the harder the search will be, and not to mention the harsh conditions of the desert would be. They have extra supervisors now, and at 4:21 p.m., there was an Amber Alert for the 2 children and their father, which is really good change because this is reflected upon a tragedy that happened in 2016. A woman named Pamela Foster, who right now is an activist for abducted Indian children, who lost her daughter named Ashlyn Mike, who along with her little brother had been kidnapped in Redlands, California. She realized that they went missing when she realized that only her oldest daughter named Gracelyn had made it home. Gracelyn also said that on her way home, she saw a red van pull up to her, and the man inside asked her to climb in, but she refused. Then she grew worried and called the police to report this. Just as Foster also got ready for the 700-mile drive to New Mexico but was not aware of the conditions that the Navajo police station were at the time. There was no 911 system, and learned that there was no jurisdiction between the tribal police or the other surrounding agencies off the reservation. She said that, in quote, there was no digital street signs, so there's nowhere that they can boom up any alert on where people can be notified. And the area where they were at, and the area that they were at were so remote that there was no self-service either. Thinking that the police weren't taking them seriously, she took to Facebook and posted at exactly 7:01 p.m. and begged the others to call her as well. To call her as well. Thankfully, about an hour and a half later, passing motorists had found him crying hard on the side of the right side. Found Ian, their little brother, crying hard on the side of the remote road several miles from the family home. But it was a little difficult to pinpoint his exact location because technology was new and there was no street signs or road signs, so they couldn't really get his exact location and mostly had to get by on descriptions, but they still found him. But unfortunately, May 3rd, Ashlyn Mike was found dead, and her killer had pleaded guilty, which he was found, the next year in 2017 and was given life in prison with no chance of relief. So in 2018, Pamela Foster went in to help implement the Amber Alert on Indian land in 2018. But this was an example of a very slow Amber Alert rollout because the tribal police force apparently lacked the capacity to even issue an Amber Alert because on Indian land, police forces were very understaffed and underfunded. Not only that, but it also took 10 years, almost 10 years, but no one at the time thought to include any tribal lands in the planning process of the Amber Alert. This happened 10 years before Ashton Mike died, but also this sparked up a change for what now gives tribal police the resources that they need for an Amber Alert. They need, so an Amber Alert is being used on more reservations. In 2016, it was studied that by the National Institute of Justice that 4 in 5 indigenous women had experienced violence in their lifetime. That's 80%, you guys didn't know. Anita Luceshi, who was a founder of and executive director of Sovereign Bodies Institute, who is, in case you didn't know, an organization that collects data on missing and murdered indigenous women, claimed that the laws love the idea of how ungovernable Indian lands is, and because it shows how we apparently can't govern ourselves to make peace. This is how the Native American communities are treated by the law enforcement. There is also acts of disproportionate violence against them, especially on Native women, which is enough for Joe Biden to call an epidemic and call for federal action, which they did, and is now a thing since 2021. Tribal communities are getting better now, when it comes to the law force. The tribal community is getting better now, and when it comes to the law force, but it was a rocky buildup, which resulted in a lot of innocent indigenous women and children being killed. But thanks to people who stepped up to make a change, we have a better law enforcement conditions, and now, like the case that we just talked about in the beginning of the speech, I unfortunately don't know what happened.
Thank you. That's
Wait, I'm not finished, sorry.
Well, I know, but we are running short. So go ahead, Grace.
They had more supervisors that were understaffed and managed to at least help the poor woman.
Thank you.
Okay. Racism will always be around and has been around for a long time. In March of 2022, a hotel in South Dakota got slandered and the staff quit because of the racism that happened there. Just because of the murder that took place, the staff labeled one culture unfairly as the natives were bad. There was a statement now, do not allow natives to come on the hotel grounds to rent rooms, and it made the media. For over 50 years, natives would bring business to the hotel with games, conventions, and events. A journalist had the courage to speak out against this. The kind of racism could affect the town from getting tourists to come to there and label the town as racist. That was a loss, that could be a loss of revenue for the town. And as for the civilization has come, you would think we would learn to live together in peace and know how to respect one another without name calling. We want to teach our kids about cultures and how to get along with different people as well. And we should not be afraid to walk down the street or into a hotel or store without being judged or with violence. It's like a reminder of the treaties that have been broken and genocides that took place long ago, and being told natives are not allowed. A tribal member from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe demanded an apology. Having a video or witnesses will help prove racism had happened or has happened. It has to go to court. And sometimes it's hard to prove without proof. And classes and training should be offered to students and employees in all jobs on how to be culturally sensitive and what to do and not to do.
Thank you.
My article is called Justice Department Orders New Push to Fight Crime on Tribal Lands. Directive to prosecutors emphasizes offenses against women and children, as well as a spate of missing person cases. So in July of this year, the U.S. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco ordered other U.S. attorneys to come up with an updated plan to heighten the safety on Native American reservations. Law enforcement in these expansive areas tend to quickly stretch thin, lessening any available resources. Lisa wanted prosecutors to focus attention on offenses against tribal women and children, as well as the victims themselves. One way she suggested was to make sure the victims get the proper examinations as soon as possible, Following those examinations, she wanted the evidence to be processed immediately. Another long-term issue she addressed was drug trafficking and addiction, which she believes needs better methods of overcoming them. She asked prosecutors to search for some methods. Reservations are sovereign nations, which causes these areas to be tangled in legal jurisdictions between members and non-members. This often leads to delays in time-sensitive criminal cases. More cultural competency training for non-native law enforcement working with native tribes would directly benefit the relationship. It would allow non-natives to become familiar with the unique history, culture, and needs of each of the tribal communities they work with. Therefore, prompt action would become more possible. Although criminal cases may be challenging, the department must be undeterred in investigating and prosecuting cases that address the public safety needs to tribal communities, she stated in the memo.
Excellent. We're not going to go to the criteria solutions. Make sure you check Google Classroom